At the engagement banquet, Ethan learned that his first love was being forced into an arranged marriage with his blind rival. Without hesitation, he rushed to register a marriage certificate with her. That very afternoon, the two flew to Iceland for their honeymoon. Their childhood love, so touching and profound, went viral across the internet. Meanwhile, I became the disgraceful third party who had interfered in their love, suffering such intense cyberbullying that I couldn't even step out of my house. Unexpectedly, that blind rival of Ethan showed up at my door. I've always been one to repay grievances in full. Since that brat Ethan stole my fiancé, I'll just have to steal his woman. A fair trade requires reciprocity, Miss Shaw. Would you be willing to register a marriage with me? I glanced at the trending search, where their romantic kiss under the aurora was all over the internet. Without hesitation, I handed my household registration booklet to the man before me. Even after receiving the marriage certificate, I still couldn't believe I had just entered a flash marriage. Moreover, my husband was not Ethan, my boyfriend of 8 years, but Henry, someone I had only met a few times, who had once stood on the opposing side. Once the certificate is issued, there's no backing out. When are you moving in? Realizing what he meant, my face instantly heated up. Luckily, he couldn't see it. Half a month. I still need some time to pack. Henry nodded. That works. Half a month is enough time to prepare for our wedding. Buy whatever you like. He stuffed a black card into my hand, his flushed ears betraying the excitement he tried to hide. I pressed my lips into a smile, thinking it was not a bad start. 10 days into my honeymoon, Ethan finally remembered to call me. My flight lands at 3 p.m. Come pick me up. There was no explanation and no acknowledgement, as if nothing had ever happened. Yet for the past 10 days, the internet had been abuzz with updates about his honeymoon with Cynthia. Every sweet moment was broadcast in real time. I watched them wrapped in each other's arms at the Blue Lagoon, sharing a passionate kiss under the aurora, making vows of eternal love on the black sand beach. He had taken someone else first to all the places I had once dreamed of visiting for my honeymoon. I'm busy. Get a taxi. Once upon a time, no matter when or where, just one word from him was enough for me to drop everything and run to his side without hesitation. Ethan fell silent for a moment before letting out a cold snort and hanging up. At this point, I thought this was an unspoken breakup between two adults. But when I got home that evening, I found him sitting on the sofa in a bathrobe. Seeing me, he casually lifted his gaze as if nothing had happened. The house is pretty tidy without me around. Over the past few days, I had thrown away many things related to Ethan. The couple's photo of us that once hung in the living room was now gone, yet he didn't seem to notice. He pointed at a paper bag on the table. A gift for you. Take a look. I glanced at it. It was a pile of broken seashells, some still covered in mud. Just moments ago, Cynthia had been flaunting on social media that Ethan had gifted her a massive ocean star gemstone. With the help of internet sleuths, I finally understood that all the so-called heartfelt gifts I had received over the years were nothing more than discarded trash. On Valentine's Day, he gave Cynthia a limited edition designer bag, while I got a heart folded from wrapping paper. On her birthday, he lit up the entire city with fireworks, yet took me to a street stall for skewers on mine. Every holiday he claimed work kept him too busy to meet my parents, when in reality, he was dining with Cynthia's family instead. Mr. Hill, you're a married man now. Isn't it inappropriate to show up at my place in the middle of the night? A flicker of guilt flashed across Ethan's face. Wendy, I only did this to help Cynthia. Henry is cold, ruthless, and blind. I couldn't just stand by and watch Cynthia jump into the fire. Marrying her was just a temporary measure. After some time, I'll separate from her. He had already come up with his excuse. Mr. Hill, I have no interest in being the third party. Please leave. From the moment he abandoned me at the engagement banquet, we were already over. Ethan's face darkened. Wendy, can you stop being so selfish? Cynthia was worried you'd be heartbroken, so she asked me to come back and keep you company. And this is how you repay her kindness? If you were sensible, I could come and keep you company on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. After all, Cynthia and I are married, so I should spend more time with her. A bitter feeling rose in my heart. 8 years of love, only to end up as a hidden mistress. Ethan, we're breaking up. Ethan's face darkened, with a faint hint of anger. Wendy, are you taking my kindness for granted? It's just a piece of paper. Why are you making such a fuss? Before we had that piece of paper, you still let me sleep with you for 8 years. Now you're being all dramatic? If it weren't for you begging me in bed saying you couldn't live without me, do you think I'd still want you? At your age, you're still playing hard to get games. How pathetic is that? I was shaking with rage. He had been the one who stubbornly pursued me back then, the one who drunkenly cried and asked me to help ease his pain. Now he married Cynthia, turning me into a joke in everyone's eyes, and yet he blames me for being selfish and inconsiderate. Ethan, we're done. From now on, you live your life and I'll live mine. We have nothing to do with each other. Ethan was furious. He grabbed the bag of broken seashells and slammed it onto the ground, shattering it into pieces. Wendy, you still want to marry someone else? In this circle, everyone knows you've been with me for 8 years. You're already used up. Who would want an old spinster like you? In the tense silence, the bathroom door suddenly opened. Cynthia stepped out, wrapped in a bath towel, barefoot. I immediately stopped breathing. At the engagement banquet, Ethan had answered a call and rushed off. Over the past few days, I had been watching their displays of affection online. Now, I wasn't sure if it was more pain, bitterness, or anger I felt. This house was bought when Ethan and I were deeply in love, each of us contributing half the money. He said it would be our love nest, a place filled with our happy memories. Wendy, don't blame Ethan. He was just trying to help me. If you must blame someone, blame me. I'm the one who's unnecessary, she said as she reached out to grab my hand. I instinctively pulled my hand away, not even touching her, yet she let out a cry and fell to the ground. Before I could react, Ethan slapped me, knocking me to the ground. The sharp pain in my hand was immediate. The broken seashells on the floor pierced deeply into my palm and blood began to drip, splattering onto the ground. Are you okay, Cynthia? He turned around and glared at me with disgust. If anything happens to Cynthia, I won't let you off easily. He hurriedly carried Cynthia downstairs and rushed to the hospital. I struggled to stand up, looking around the house I had lived in for 8 years, feeling like it was strangely unfamiliar. On my bed, the sheets were wrinkled, a torn black stocking was draped over the edge, and the floor was littered with used tissues. The air was filled with a disgusting smell. I hurried out, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. It was filthy, and now even the house felt dirty. There were too many broken seashells stuck in my palm, so I had no choice but to take a taxi to the hospital. I purposely chose a hospital far from home, but as fate would have it, I ran into Ethan and Cynthia. Cynthia was holding her hand. hand, which hadn't even been broken, and crying out in pain. Ethan, in his usual gentle manner, picked her up and sat her on his lap, carefully asking the doctor for any precautions. When we first got together, he had been just as anxious for me. One night, when I had a fever, he was so flustered that he didn't even put on shoes, only realizing later that his foot had been cut by glass after confirming that I was safe. Wendy, you are my precious. I can't bear to see you get hurt. As I walked out, I happened to bump into him just as he was entering. Wendy, Ethan was just accompanying me to check my injury. Are you so restless that you had to follow us here? Ethan gave me a contemptuous look. Weren't you just saying how we're broken up? What are you doing now? Wendy, you're too shameless. If you dare hurt a single hair on Cynthia again, I won't be polite with you. I raised my hand, now stained with blood. Look at the injury. Move aside. Ethan froze in place, a flash of guilt passing through his eyes. Wendy, is the injury serious? He tried to come inside but was interrupted by Cynthia's scream. Cynthia, my hand hurts so much. Ethan no longer paid attention to me, quickly turning around and carrying Cynthia away. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I received a message from Henry, asking me to make time to try on the custom wedding ring. After freshening up, I was surprised to see Ethan carrying breakfast into the room. You must be starving. Come eat. It was a basket of crab roe buns and a bowl of pumpkin porridge. One caused an allergy, and the other was something I absolutely hated. Take the day off today. It's the changing of seasons. Let me take you shopping for some new clothes. It was the same old routine. He gave a little treat after a blow, something he often did over the years. However, when the time actually came, he took the back seat. Today, you drive. I didn't rest well last night. I looked at my hand, wrapped in bandages, and couldn't help but mock myself silently. In the rearview mirror, he held his phone, a faint smile playing on his lips. It wasn't until the car stopped and he saw the sign of the jewelry store outside that his expression immediately darkened. He blocked my way at the door, his face full of displeasure. Wendy, I've told you before. Let's wait a bit. Why do you have to force me like this? I'm just getting a certificate with Cynthia, not holding a wedding. No one knows. Once the fuss dies down, we'll quietly get a divorce. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. Ethan, do you think this diamond ring is pretty? Cynthia was wearing a 1-carat diamond ring, raising her hand and acting coquettishly towards Ethan. Ethan immediately put on a smile. As long as you like it, it's beautiful. Our wedding is in 5 days. Can I buy this one as our wedding ring? I paused in my tracks, just in time to catch Ethan turning his head awkwardly. His words were all lies, but it didn't matter. In 5 days, it would be my wedding too. It seemed to confirm the idea of men and women marrying, each going their own way. The waiter carefully brought over the ring that Henry had ordered. It was a pink diamond, the only one of its kind in the world, stunning and dazzling. Cynthia's eyes were full of greed as she looked at the ring on my hand. Wendy, I really like the ring on your hand. Can I try it on? The nearby waiter immediately apologized. I'm sorry, but this ring has already been reserved. Would you like to look at something else? Cynthia's eyes turned red in an instant. Wendy, do you know about our wedding in 5 days, and are you deliberately teaming up with the staff here to make trouble? I really like this ring. I just want to experience what it feels like to be a bride. Can't you just let me try it on? No, I am getting married in 5 days too. Ethan's face darkened like ink. Wendy, are you done yet? When did I ever say I wanted to marry you? I furrowed my brows slightly. Ethan, don't get ahead of yourself. The person I'm marrying is not you.
The words landed cleanly in the air. For a second, the jewelry store felt silent enough that even the soft hum of the display lights seemed loud. Ethan froze. What did you just say? His brows pulled together, like he had misheard something absurd rather than undeniable. Cynthia, still standing beside him with her hand raised and the borrowed diamond ring half flaunted between her fingers, also stiffened. Her expression flickered, confusion first, then unease, then something sharper. I didn't repeat myself. Instead, I lifted my bandaged hand slightly, the blood-stained gauze already starting to stiffen, and looked at the store attendant. Please bring the ring back. I need it resized before the wedding. The attendant nodded quickly and reached for the box. That simple sentence finally snapped Ethan's patience. Wendy, he said coldly, stepping directly in front of me. Are you seriously still doing this act in front of me? His eyes dragged over me like I was staging a performance for attention. You followed me here, showed up at the same store, and now you're talking about marrying someone else? A humorless laugh escaped him. Who? That blind man you barely know? Henry? You think marrying him will make me jealous? Cynthia's lips curled slightly as she added softly, Wendy, don't force yourself. If it's because of me and Ethan, I can. Can what? I finally looked at her. The smile on her face froze. I turned back to Ethan. You really think everything revolves around you? My voice wasn't loud. That was the strange part, it didn't need to be. Ethan's expression shifted slightly. Not anger now. Something closer to irritation, and uncertainty he didn't like admitting. I continued, I didn't follow you. I came for my own appointment. You just happened to be here. I held up my phone. On the screen was the confirmation message from the jeweler, along with Henry's name. Engagement ring fitting. 11:30 a.m. The silence that followed this time was different. He stared at it. Once. Twice. Then his eyes flicked to the display counter, the pink diamond ring already being carefully placed into a velvet box by the staff, as if confirming reality without words. Cynthia's fingers tightened around her borrowed ring. That's impossible, Ethan said flatly. But his voice had lost its earlier certainty. I tilted my head slightly. Why would it be impossible? A beat passed. Then, almost reflexively, he scoffed again, louder this time. You're really going to marry someone just to spite me? That sentence, so familiar, so arrogant, almost made me laugh. I didn't. Instead, I said calmly, Ethan, you overestimate your importance in my decisions. His face changed instantly. That hit harder than anger. Cynthia quickly stepped in, voice soft but sharpened with panic. Wendy, even if you're upset, you shouldn't joke about marriage. It's not something you use to compete. I'm not competing with you. I turned my gaze to her, then to him. I already said it. A pause. 5 days from now, I'm getting married. This time, Ethan didn't interrupt immediately. Something in his expression flickered, annoyance giving way to something heavier. Like he was recalculating a situation that refused to fit his expectations. Then he scoffed again, but it sounded weaker. You're unbelievable. He reached out, grabbing my wrist. Not gently. Come with me. We're talking this out properly. The grip tightened. A few nearby customers glanced over. And that was when another voice cut through the store. Low. Even. Cold in a way that didn't need volume. Take your hand off her. All heads turned. Henry stood at the entrance. Dark coat, composed posture, came lightly touching the floor beside him, his presence calm, but unmistakably firm. Even without seeing clearly, his attention was exactly locked in the direction of Ethan's hand on my wrist. Ethan hesitated. Just for a second. Then he narrowed his eyes. So this is him. Cynthia blinked rapidly, clearly surprised. Henry didn't move closer immediately. He only said, "You have 3 seconds." Ethan's grip tightened as if in defiance. 1 second passed. Then another. And in that quiet moment, I saw it. Something shift behind Ethan's eyes. Not confidence. Not anger. Recognition of a situation slipping out of his control. Henry took 1 step forward. The cane tapped once. Soft. Final. And Ethan, still holding my wrist, suddenly looked like he wasn't sure whether letting go now would mean losing or admitting he already had. The store's air tightened. Ethan didn't let go. Instead, he tightened his grip slightly, as if Henry's presence was just another inconvenience he could override. 3 seconds. Ethan let out a sharp laugh. You think talking like that makes you sound impressive? He finally turned his head toward Henry, eyes full of open contempt. You're blind. You should know your place before. Ethan. My voice cut through his sentence. Not loud. Not trembling. Just final. He paused. For the first time, his grip loosened slightly, not because he wanted to, but because he was surprised I interrupted him. I looked at his hand still on my wrist. Then I looked at him. Let go. Ethan frowned. Wendy, don't start this. You're being manipulated. Let go. The second repetition landed heavier. Something in the store shifted. Even the staff behind the counter had stopped moving. Cynthia's expression tightened. Ethan, maybe just. Stay out of this, he snapped without looking at her. His eyes were locked on me now. Like he was trying to find the version of me that used to soften at his tone. But I didn't. Finally, slowly, Ethan released my wrist. The moment his hand dropped, Henry took 1 step forward and stood beside me, not between us, not in front of me. Just there. Present. Calm. A quiet kind of protection that didn't need performance. Ethan noticed that immediately. His jaw tightened. So this is it, he said, voice lower now. You really chose him over 8 years? I exhaled once. Not in frustration. In clarity. I didn't choose you in the first place today, I said. You just didn't notice when you stopped being the person I chose. Silence. That one hit harder than anything else I'd said. Cynthia shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware that the attention in the room was no longer on her performance, her ring, or her presence at all. Ethan scoffed again, but it sounded forced. You think marrying him fixes everything? You think you win something? I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said quietly, there was never a game. Henry finally spoke again. Your fiancé is waiting for her fitting, he said evenly. Unless you plan to continue disrupting it, I suggest you leave. Ethan's expression twisted. Fiancé, he repeated. Then he laughed. You really did it fast. How much did you? He stopped mid-sentence. Not because he changed his mind. Because Henry lifted his phone slightly. Just enough for Ethan to see the screen. A document. Formal. Stamped. Even from a distance, unmistakably legal. Ethan's expression shifted. Once. Then again. You. For the first time, uncertainty cracked his voice. Henry lowered the phone. I don't need your approval, he said. Nor your understanding. A pause. Then, calmly. But I do suggest you familiarize yourself with the fact that she is no longer within your legal or social claim to interfere with. Cynthia went pale. That's not Ethan. What is he talking about? But Ethan didn't answer her. His eyes stayed on me. Like he was seeing me properly for the first time in years and didn't like what he found. You really signed something, he said slowly. Without me. Without telling me. I almost smiled. You signed your life away from me at the engagement banquet, I said. You just didn't read the consequences. That finally broke something in him. Not loudly, but visibly. His face tightened, then hardened again as if he refused to accept it. You'll regret this, he said. It sounded like a warning. But it also sounded like panic disguised as control. Henry stepped slightly closer to me. Not blocking me. Just aligning with me. We're done here, Henry said. Then, to the staff. Proceed with the fitting. The attendant nodded quickly, visibly eager to end the tension. Ethan stood still for a second longer, breathing heavier now. Cynthia tugged lightly at his sleeve. Ethan, let's go. People are staring. Only then did he notice. The customers. The phone subtly lifted. The quiet recording. The public unraveling of something that used to be private arrogance. His pride finally overrode his hesitation. He turned sharply. But before leaving, he looked back at me one last time. Not soft. Not apologetic. Still sharp. Still claiming something he no longer had a right to. This isn't over, Wendy. I met his gaze. For the first time, I didn't follow it with pain. Only distance. It already is. He left. Cynthia followed quickly, her heels uneven, her confidence completely gone. The door closed behind them. And only then did I realize my hands had stopped shaking. Henry's voice lowered beside me. Are you alright? I glanced at him. Then at the ring box now placed gently on the counter. I think I said slowly, I am now. A pause. Then quieter. But I didn't expect it to feel this. Quiet. Henry gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod. Peace usually does. Outside, the street noise returned like nothing had happened. But inside that store, something irreversible had already shifted. The fitting room quieted after Ethan and Cynthia left, but the silence they left behind didn't feel empty, it felt charged, like the air hadn't finished absorbing what just happened. The pink diamond ring lay under the jeweler's light, glowing softly as if nothing in the world had touched it. Henry sat across from me, posture steady, cane resting beside him. Calm but not detached. You didn't answer my question earlier, he said. I glanced up. Which one? If you're alright. For a moment, I almost gave the same answer as before. The automatic one. The polite one. But my throat felt tight in a different way now. I don't know, I admitted quietly. I think I just stopped pretending something wasn't broken. Henry didn't respond immediately. He just nodded once, like that answer made more sense than anything comforting ever could. Then, in a lower voice. He's not finished. I let out a short breath. Ethan never is. He just escalates until someone refuses to bleed for him anymore. A flicker of something crossed Henry's expression at that. Not surprise. Recognition. The jeweler returned with the adjusted ring and placed it gently in front of me as if the world outside hadn't just cracked open. It's perfect now, she said carefully. I slipped it on. The diamond caught the light and for a second, it felt unreal. Like something meant for another version of me. Henry's gaze dropped to my hand. Then he said quietly, good. A pause. And it suits you. I didn't know why that sentence landed differently. Outside the store, the world hit like a wave. My phone vibrated once. Then again. Then exploded. I stopped walking. Henry noticed immediately. What is it? I opened the screen. Trending topics flooded in. Hashtag Ethan Hill engagement scandal. Hashtag Blenderville mystery fiance. Hashtag Shaw family pink diamond. Videos were already everywhere. Ethan grabbing my wrist. Henry standing at the entrance like a wall that didn't need sight to block someone out. The ring on my finger catching light like a declaration. But the captions weren't just gossip anymore. They were turning. Fast. Wait, that ring is the Shaw heirloom piece. Why is Ethan acting like she's still his property? Henry Vale doesn't appear in public. Why is he here? This isn't a love triangle. This is a power shift. My thumb froze. Then I saw a comment that made my stomach tighten. Henry Vale? That blind heir who disappeared after the accident. I thought he was declared. The rest was cut off mid-sentence. Henry tilted his head slightly. Bad news. I locked the screen. It's nothing. But my voice came out thinner than I intended. He didn't press me. Only said softly, nothing usually spreads the fastest. That night, my apartment felt wrong in a way I couldn't immediately name. Not dirty. Not broken. Just, no longer containing the same life it used to. I set the ring box down on the table. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. I stared at the name for a long moment. Then declined the call. Immediately, another came. Then a message. Wendy. Answer. Don't turn this into something ridiculous. I almost laughed. Ridiculous. As if the last few days had been normal. Another message followed. You don't understand what you're getting into. That man isn't what you think he is. My fingers hovered. Not because I believed him, but because I recognized the pattern. Ethan always became concerned when he was losing control. I deleted the message. Another arrived instantly. He's dangerous. You're being used. This time, I didn't even open it. I put the phone face down. And for the first time, I didn't feel pulled toward fixing anything. 2 days later, Henry asked me to meet him. At an estate outside the city. When the car stopped at the gates, I didn't move immediately. This is yours. I asked. Henry stood beside me, cane in hand. No, he said. A pause. Then the gates opened on their own. That alone made my chest tighten. We walked through a glass corridor overlooking a vast garden below. Everything was too controlled. Too quiet. Like the entire place existed to hide sound. Henry stopped abruptly. So did I. He turned toward me. And for the first time since I met him, something in his calmness shifted subtly, but unmistakably. Wendy, he said. I frowned slightly. What is this place? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked. You've heard what people are saying about me. My stomach tightened. That you're wealthy, I said carefully. That you're out of sight for a reason. A faint exhale. Then Henry lifted his gaze slightly, not toward me, but through me, as if recalling something distant. That's not wrong, he said. A pause. Then, quieter. But it isn't the truth that matters. The air changed. Something in his tone made the garden below feel suddenly farther away. Henry took one step closer. And for the first time, his voice lost its softness entirely. Ethan thinks he's the storm in your life, he said. A beat. But he's only the noise that came before it. My pulse quickened. Henry. He cut in gently, but firmly. Before this goes any further, he said, you deserve to know exactly what you just married into. Silence dropped like a curtain. And in that moment, I realized. This wasn't an explanation coming. It was a revelation I couldn't walk away from. The garden below the glass corridor suddenly felt too wide, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Henry didn't move closer. He didn't need to. Even standing still, there was something in him that made the space feel smaller. You deserve to know exactly what you just married into, he repeated. My fingers instinctively tightened around the strap of my bag. That's a strange thing to say, I said carefully, considering we haven't even held a wedding yet. A faint pause. Then Henry said, we already did. The words didn't register at first. I blinked once. What? He turned slightly toward me, expression unreadable. The registration. The certificate. That wasn't symbolic, Wendy. A cold sensation crept up my spine. My voice dropped. You said it was just paperwork. It is, he said calmly. But paperwork is what makes it real. The corridor suddenly felt colder. I stared at him. Henry, what are you talking about? For the first time, something like hesitation crossed his face, but only briefly. Then he said it. Henry Vale is not a name I use publicly. A pause. Then, quieter. It's the one I use when I want to be left alone. My heartbeat slowed, not from calm, but from instinct. Outside, the wind shifted through the glass structure, brushing faintly against the walls like something trying to get in. You're not just some businessman, I said slowly. He gave a small nod. No. The word landed like a sealed door locking shut. I took a step back without realizing it. Henry didn't stop me. Instead, he continued, voice steady but sharper now. The Vale family doesn't appear in headlines unless necessary. We don't participate in public visibility. And we don't tolerate interference. My throat went dry. That doesn't explain why you married me. For the first time, silence stretched too long. Then Henry said, very quietly, because you were already being watched. My breath caught. What? He turned fully toward me now. And though his eyes were unfocused, it felt like he was looking directly at something behind me, or beyond me. Ethan Hill is reckless, he said. But he is not alone. The engagement banquet wasn't just a personal humiliation, it was a signal. My hands went cold. A signal for what? Henry's voice lowered. For who could be controlled, and who couldn't. The garden below suddenly didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like surveillance. Like every hedge, every pathway, every shadow was arranged with intent. I shook my head slightly. This is insane, I said. You're telling me my life with Ethan was being watched? Henry didn't deny it. That was the worst part. Instead, he said, and the moment you were publicly discarded, you became visible again. My stomach dropped. Visible to who? A long pause. Then Henry answered. To people who don't forgive mistakes. The words hit too cleanly. Too practiced. Like they had been said before in worse rooms, under worse circumstances. A distant sound echoed through the estate, metal gates shifting somewhere far below. I turned my head instinctively. Nothing was visible from here. But Henry's posture changed slightly. Not fear. Alertness. And then he said something that made the air stop moving entirely. They found this place faster than expected. My pulse spiked. What do you mean they? A sharp, controlled voice cut through the corridor speaker system before I could finish. Uninvited. Cold. Familiar in a way that made my skin tighten. Wendy. Ethan. My entire body went still. Henry didn't react outwardly, but his hand moved slightly toward the cane. The voice continued through the hidden speakers, distorted by distance but unmistakable. You can stop pretending you don't know me. A pause. Then, sharper. Come out. Now. My breathing turned shallow. How did I started? Henry interrupted softly. Because I let him follow. I turned to him instantly. What? For the first time, something like gravity entered his tone. I needed to confirm something. The garden below suddenly didn't feel like a view anymore. It felt like containment. Ethan's voice came again, louder this time. I don't care what games you're playing with that man. You're leaving with me. A faint static crackled through the system. Then another voice appeared. Not Ethan's. Lower. More controlled. Subject located. My blood went cold. Henry exhaled slowly. That's faster than I expected. I stepped back again, heart pounding now. Henry, I said sharply, what did you do? He turned slightly toward me. And for the first time since I met him, there was no calm disguise left in his voice. I gave them exactly what they were looking for. A beat. Then, you. The words didn't immediately make sense. Not because they were complicated, because they were too simple. I gave them exactly what they were looking for. You. For a second, my mind refused to connect anything after that sentence. Then the estate below shifted again. Distant movement. Voices. Controlled, coordinated. Not random. Not panic. Organized arrival. My throat tightened. Henry, what did you just say? He didn't repeat it. Instead, he turned slightly toward the glass wall, as if listening to something only he could interpret. Then calmly said, "They've entered the outer perimeter." My heart slammed. That doesn't answer my question. A pause. Then Henry finally looked at me again. And something about his expression had changed. Less distance, more inevitability. "I didn't lure Ethan here," he said. "I let the situation reach its natural endpoint." My hands shook slightly. "You're talking like this is strategy." "It is," he said simply. The word hit harder than it should have. Below us, the estate's silent perfection was no longer peaceful. Figures moved along the garden paths, too uniform to be guests, too precise to be staff. And somewhere inside that structure, Ethan's voice erupted again through the speakers. "Wendy, don't listen to him. He's isolating you." Then a crash of static. Henry's expression didn't change, but his voice lowered. "He's still trying to reach you first." Predictable. My stomach turned. "You're treating this like a game," I said sharply. Henry's head tilted slightly. "No," he said. "Games imply equal sides." That sentence made something in my chest tighten painfully. I took another step back. "You said I was being watched," I said. "Watched by who?" A beat. Henry exhaled once. "People who operate outside public names. Private networks. Family-backed intelligence groups. The kind Ethan has been circling without understanding what he's stepping into." My mouth went dry. "That's insane." "Insane things are usually just unacknowledged systems," he replied calmly. Then, quieter. "And you were never the target. You were the access point." The corridor felt like it tilted slightly under my feet. "Access point to what?" Henry didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took one step forward. Slow. Measured. Not threatening, but final in direction. "To me," he said. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the estate noises below seemed to fade for a second, like the world itself was waiting for my reaction. I stared at him. "You're saying Ethan's entire obsession, the engagement, Cynthia, everything was all connected to you?" A faint pause. "Yes." That single syllable felt like something snapping into place and breaking at the same time. My voice dropped. "So I was never just a girlfriend. Never just anything." Henry didn't deny it. That was answer enough. My chest tightened. "And you," I said slowly, anger rising now, "you married me without telling me any of this?" A flicker crossed his expression. Not guilt. Something heavier. "I told you one truth," he said. I laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "One truth? You mean the part where you conveniently left out I was being used as bait in something I didn't agree to?" His voice stayed even. "You were not bait." A pause. Then, "You were the only variable they couldn't predict." That made me stop. The speakers below crackled again. Ethan's voice, closer now, closer than it should be. "Wendy, I'm coming in. Don't let him fill your head with lies." Then another voice layered in. Cold. Measured. "Target is confirmed inside structure." My pulse spiked. "What does that mean?" I demanded. Henry turned slightly toward the sound, then back to me. "It means," he said quietly, "we're out of time for explanations." My breath caught. Outside the glass corridor, a door somewhere below finally opened. Not gently. Not politely. The sound echoed upward through the estate like a warning shot. Henry's cane shifted slightly in his hand. And for the first time, his voice lost all softness completely. "They're not here for conversation anymore." A pause. Then, almost softly. "And Ethan just made it much worse by coming himself." The echo of the door slamming below still vibrated through the glass corridor. Then everything moved at once. Footsteps, fast, coordinated, cut through the lower halls of the estate. Not scattered. Not searching. Closing in. Ethan's voice came again through the intercom, but it was no longer controlled. "Wendy, I'm right outside. Don't listen to him. Open the door." Then static. Then a second voice overlaid it, colder than before. Multiple signals detected. Confirming target proximity. My skin went cold. "They're talking like I'm an object," I whispered. Henry didn't respond immediately. His head angled slightly, as if mapping sound. Then quietly, "Because to them you are." That answer made my stomach drop. I turned on him sharply. Enough with the cryptic answers. "Who are they?" A pause. Then Henry said, "People who don't negotiate." Another impact echoed below, metal against metal. A secured door being forced. The estate, so pristine moments ago, now sounded like it was being dismantled from the inside. Ethan again, louder, closer, unhinged now. "Wendy, I swear I'm going to kill him if he's touched you." Henry's expression changed at that. Subtle, but sharp enough to notice. "He shouldn't have come alone," Henry said. I stared at him. "You let him come here." "I needed him to confirm intent," Henry replied. "Intent of what?" My voice cracked now. Henry finally turned fully toward me. And this time, there was no delay in his answer. "Whether he still sees you as a person," he said, "or as something he owns." A cold silence followed. Then another voice cut through the system. Closer. Direct. "Estate breach confirmed. Initiating containment protocol." My breath stopped. "Containment?" I repeated. Henry stepped forward slightly, not toward me, but toward the corridor's edge where the glass met the drop into the garden. "Yes," he said. A pause. Then, quieter. "And now we find out who leaves first." My heart slammed. "What does that mean?" Henry didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat and removed something small. A thin black device, no larger than a card. He pressed it once. Immediately, the glass panels along the corridor dimmed. Not shattered. Not broken. Just changed. A faint reflective tint spread across them, like the entire structure had turned into a one-way surface. I stepped back instinctively. "What did you just do?" Henry's voice lowered. "Visibility control." Another impact shook the lower floor. Ethan's voice erupted again, but this time it was farther and angrier. "Wendy, come out right now." Then a pause. And suddenly, silence. That silence was worse, because it meant something had changed. Henry exhaled slowly. They stopped pushing forward. I frowned. Why would they stop? He didn't answer immediately. Then, because they found something they didn't expect. My pulse quickened. "What?" Henry turned slightly toward me. And for the first time, there was something almost unreadable in his tone. Me not running. A beat. Then the estate lights below flickered. Once. Twice. Then emergency red illumination spread through the lower halls like a spreading wound. And Ethan's voice returned closer than ever, now echoing directly beneath us. "Wendy, get away from him." But this time, it didn't sound angry. It sounded uncertain. Henry stepped closer to the glass. His voice was calm again, but now it carried weight. "He finally realized something," Henry said. I swallowed. "What?" Henry's answer came softly. "That I never intended to hide from him." A pause. Then, colder. "I intended to see who would still come when they knew I wasn't vulnerable." A new sound filled the estate. Not footsteps. Not alarms. A mechanical lock sequence engaging somewhere deep in the structure. One by one. Click, click, click. Like the building itself was choosing sides. My voice came out barely steady. "Henry, what are you?" For the first time, he didn't answer immediately. Below, Ethan's voice rose again, strained now, almost breaking through the calm. "Wendy, if you can hear me, he's not who you think he is." Henry finally spoke. Not looking at me. Not looking away. Just forward. "I never asked to be believed," he said. A pause. Then, I only asked who would still stand here when the truth stopped being comfortable. The final lock engaged. A deep, resonant sound rolled through the estate like a sealed verdict. And somewhere below, Ethan stopped shouting. The silence that followed Ethan's voice wasn't peace. It was restraint. Like something had finally been held back by force rather than choice. Then came the sound of breathing over the intercom, ragged, uneven, unmistakably human. Henry Vale. Ethan's voice returned, lower now, stripped of its earlier volume. So it is you. My chest tightened at that name. Henry didn't react immediately. He simply stood there, facing the glass corridor as the red emergency light pulsed faintly over everything below. You're louder than expected, Henry said at last. Ethan let out a sharp, humorless laugh through the system. You disappeared for years. No trace. No presence. And suddenly you show up with her. A pause. Then colder. You think I don't know what the Vale family does? My fingers curled slightly. Henry's tone didn't change. Then you know you shouldn't be here. A distant metallic sound echoed again, like someone forcing a locked barrier open. Ethan's voice sharpened. I came for Wendy. That sentence landed differently this time. Not possessive like before. Not arrogant. Direct. Henry finally turned his head slightly. And for the first time, his calm looked less like distance and more like calculation. Incorrect, he said. A pause. You came because you were allowed to. The silence that followed was immediate. Even Ethan didn't respond right away. Then, quieter. What does that mean? Henry lifted his hand slightly. And somewhere in the estate, unseen systems responded. Screens embedded in the corridor walls flickered to life. Not cameras. Not feeds. Records. Dates. Logs. Transfers. Meetings. Names. My breath caught as fragments appeared in fast succession, too fast to process fully. Ethan Hill. Shaw Group. Vale Compliance Monitoring. Engagement Banquet flagged event marker. Subject, Wendy Shaw. My stomach dropped. What is this? I whispered. Henry's voice came beside me steady. Every choice you thought was private, he said, was already being observed in context. Ethan's voice cut through again, now louder, but strained. Stop showing her that. For the first time, there was something close to urgency in him. Henry ignored it. One of the panels zoomed in. A file opened. My name. My movements. Even before the engagement banquet. Before the breakup. Before Henry. My hands went cold. I've been monitored? I whispered. Henry corrected softly. Protected. That word hit wrong. Below, Ethan's voice snapped again. Protected? You call that protection? You turned her life into a system. Henry's tone finally sharpened, just slightly. No. A pause. Your involvement did. Silence dropped like a weight. Then Ethan spoke again, slower this time. You set this up. It wasn't a question. Henry didn't deny it. And that was the answer. My breath caught. I stepped back instinctively. So everything I said, voice tightening, the marriage, the timing, the way you appeared right when everything fell apart. Henry turned slightly toward me. Not defensive. Not evasive. Just honest. Yes. The corridor felt like it narrowed. My voice shook now. You used my collapse in my life as, what? A pivot point. A pause. Then Henry said, very quietly. I used the moment you stopped being safe inside his narrative. That word again. Narrative. Like my life had been a story someone else was tracking. Ethan's voice came back, louder, furious again, but now there was something fractured underneath it. You didn't save her, he said. You replaced one cage with another. Henry didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time since I met him, there was something unguarded in his expression. You can leave, he said quietly. The words didn't match anything happening outside. I blinked. What? He continued, voice steady. You always could. A pause. Then lower. But if you stay, you decide knowing everything you just saw is real, not theory. Below us, Ethan's voice rose one last time. Wendy, don't trust him. But it was different now. No longer certain. No longer in control. Just desperate. Henry stepped back slightly, creating space between us, not distance, but choice. The estate's alarms had stopped. The systems were no longer escalating. Everything had settled into a tense, waiting stillness. Henry spoke one final time. No one is forcing you, he said. A beat. Then, not me. Not him. Not this system. Silence. Only the faint hum of the glass corridor remained. And for the first time since all of this began, the decision was actually mine. The silence after Henry's last words didn't feel like freedom. It felt like suspension. Like the entire state had paused just to watch what I would do next. Below us, Ethan didn't speak again immediately. Then, quieter, stripped of everything except something raw underneath it. Wendy, come down here. Just talk to me. No orders this time. No arrogance. Just a voice that sounded like it didn't recognize itself anymore. Henry didn't interrupt. He didn't pressure. He simply stood there, as if the world had narrowed down to a single unavoidable question. Stay. Or walk away. I looked at him. Really looked. Not the calm man who signed papers. Not the blind heir everyone feared in rumors. Not the strategist everyone seemed to orbit without understanding. Just the person who had been standing beside me while my entire life collapsed and rearranged itself without permission. You said I could leave, I said quietly. Henry nodded once. Yes. A pause. And I won't stop you. That should have felt simple. It didn't. Because nothing about him since the beginning had ever tried to physically trap me. It was always something else. Information. Timing. Reality shifting slightly out of place every time I thought I understood it. Below, Ethan's voice came again, lower now, almost unstable. I know you're up there. A beat. Then, harsher. Don't let him rewrite you. That line hit something sharp in my chest. Henry's expression changed slightly at that, not toward Ethan, but toward me, like he was waiting to see where the sentence landed. And for the first time, I realized something terrifyingly clear. Ethan still thought I belonged in a story where he was the center. Henry didn't even assume I was part of a story at all. Just a person moving through one. My fingers loosened slightly. I need to ask you something, I said. Henry didn't move. Ask. My voice came quieter. If I leave, does everything stop? A faint pause. Then Henry said, no. That honesty was immediate. Unpolished. Unsoftened. My throat tightened. Then what happens if I stay? Another pause. Longer this time. Henry's answer came carefully, like he was choosing not to hide anything. Then you stop being an observer, he said. And you become someone they account for. A chill moved through me. Account for, I repeated. He nodded slightly. Below, something metallic shifted again, movement returning after the pause. Ethan again, but now closer, controlled but strained. Wendy, please. That word please felt like it didn't belong in his voice. It didn't fit him anymore. Or maybe it never had. I exhaled slowly. And for the first time, I stopped looking at Ethan's voice as something pulling me backward. I looked at it as something that had already ended. Then I turned my gaze to Henry. If I stay, I said, no more half-truths. Henry didn't hesitate. Agreed. A pause. No more shielding. No more selective silence. Something in his expression softened, just slightly. Not relief. Respect. Below, Ethan went quiet again, like he was listening now instead of demanding. I stepped forward. Not toward the glass. Not toward Henry. Just forward, into the center of the corridor where neither direction felt like escape. I'm staying, I said. The words didn't feel dramatic. They felt final. Below, there was a long silence. Then Ethan's voice came through one last time low, broken around the edges. You're really choosing him. I closed my eyes briefly. When I opened them again, I didn't look down. I'm choosing myself, I said. That was when everything changed. Not loudly. Not explosively. But structurally. Henry's head tilted slightly, as if acknowledging something invisible shifting. And somewhere deep in the estate, systems clicked again, not locking this time, but releasing. A different sound entirely. Ethan's voice didn't come back. Not immediately. Just static. Then nothing. Henry exhaled once, slow. They've withdrawn from active breach, he said quietly. I looked at him. So what now? A faint pause. Then Henry turned slightly toward me. And for the first time since all of this began, his answer wasn't about control, systems, or observation. It was simple. Now, he said, you decide what kind of life you want this to become. And for the first time, it didn't feel like I was inside someone else's plan. The estate quieted in a way that didn't feel like tension anymore. It felt like resolution. By morning, the red emergency lights were gone. The glass corridor was just glass again, clear, open, ordinary enough to almost make the night feel like something that had been exaggerated by fear and adrenaline. Almost. Henry stood near the garden doors, cane resting lightly against the floor, as if nothing in him had ever been disturbed. But I noticed the details now. The staff moving differently. The way security no longer looked uncertain, but settled. The absence of Ethan's presence like a space had been erased rather than vacated. You didn't tell me everything, I said. Henry didn't turn immediately. Then, calmly, no. I waited. He added, but I told you enough for choice. That word again. Choice. I walked past him into the garden. The air outside was softer than the night before. Real sunlight. Real stillness. No hidden alarms beneath it. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe without feeling watched. You said I can leave, I said. Henry followed a few steps behind, not closing distance. Yes. A pause. And that remains true. I looked at him over my shoulder. Even now. He nodded once. That should have ended everything cleanly. But life rarely respects clean endings. 3 days later, the headlines were different. Not louder. Worse. Ethan Hill's name was still there, but now it was attached to financial investigations, internal conflicts, and sudden removals from company decision circles. Cynthia's name vanished from public attention entirely, like she had never been part of the narrative at all. And Henry Vale. Henry Vale stopped being a rumor. He became a problem people began to speak around, not about. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt distance. Because the world wasn't reacting like something ended. It was reacting like something had been contained. On the 5th day, the wedding happened. Not a grand ceremony. Not even public. Just a signed confirmation, quiet venue, minimal presence. No Ethan. No interruption. No chaos. Just the pink diamond ring on my finger and Henry standing beside me as if this was simply a continuation of something already decided elsewhere. You're thinking too much, Henry said quietly as we left the venue. I glanced at him. I'm thinking I didn't really choose anything back there, I said. A pause. He replied, you did. That was all. And for a moment, I almost believed him. But peace, when it's built on unknown foundations, always comes with a price you don't immediately recognize. It started small. Phones that stopped ringing with Ethan's messages. Then stopped receiving any news about him at all. Then, silence so complete it didn't feel natural. One evening, I asked Henry directly. Where is he? Henry paused. Longer than usual. Then said, no longer a variable in your environment. That wasn't an answer. It was avoidance dressed as precision. A week later, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. A file left open on a side screen in the estate study. Not public records. Not news. Internal notation. One line stood out. Subject Hill, Ethan removed from external access framework following stabilization of Vale priority asset. My hand went cold. Priority asset, I repeated out loud. Henry's voice came from behind me. You shouldn't be in there. I turned slowly. This is what I am to you? I asked. An asset? Silence. For the first time, Henry didn't respond immediately. That silence said more than anything else had. The garden outside was still beautiful. The estate still quiet. The life still comfortable. But now I understood something I hadn't understood before. Nothing had been taken from me violently. It had been redirected carefully. And somewhere far beyond the gates, Ethan wasn't part of my story anymore. Not because I escaped him, but because I had been moved into something larger than both of us. Henry stood beside me that night, as calm as ever. And I finally realized the truth didn't come as a dramatic reveal. It came as a steady, quiet realization. The cage hadn't disappeared. It had just changed shape.